Ilhan Omar called John Kennedy a racist. Kennedy did not flinch. He simply asked her to say it again. Not louder, not slower, but again, on the record. She smiled as she repeated it, the smile of someone who treats a word like a weapon and believes she alone holds it. What she failed to notice was Kennedy uncapping his pen, writing on a yellow pad, and calmly setting a trap that was about to turn her own words against her. The hearing was supposed to be about immigration, border numbers, funding, the kind of session that fills a Senate room with staffers checking their phones and reporters drafting headlines before the first question is asked. The moment Omar opened her mouth, the hearing became something else. It became a stage, and she walked onto it as if the lights were already trained on her. She had done this before, not once, not twice, but often enough that it carried a rhythm. Someone disagrees with her, she finds the camera, she deploys the word. The room is supposed to rearrange itself around her pain. That was the playbook. That had always been the playbook. Kennedy sat 4 seats to her left. His jacket was off, sleeves loosened at the cuffs rather than rolled. A glass of water sat untouched. And that yellow pad. He had been writing on it before the hearing began. Small letters, neat columns. The handwriting of a man taught that penmanship is a form of respect. Omar's voice carried, as it always did. She turned her chair 45 degrees so the camera caught her profile. She pointed, not at Kennedy, but past him, at something larger, at the idea of him. What we are hearing today, she said, is the language of exclusion, the language of racism. And the senator from Louisiana knows exactly what he is doing. The room waited. A few staffers looked up from their phones. A camera operator in the back adjusted his angle. This was the part where someone was supposed to get angry, to sputter, to hand her the reaction she needed to make the clip work. Kennedy uncapped his pen. "Congresswoman," his voice low and unhurried, like a man asking a neighbor about a property line. "I want to make sure I heard you correctly. You are saying on the record, in this hearing, in front of these cameras, that I am a racist." He let the sentence sit in the air. He did not fill the silence. He let the silence fill the room. Omar tilted her chin. "I am saying that your rhetoric has racial undertones, and that the communities affected by your policies understand exactly what those undertones mean." Kennedy wrote something on the yellow pad. 2 words. He underlined them. "That is not what you said, ma'am. You said racist. I want to know if that is your official statement, because words like that have weight. Or at least they used to." Her jaw shifted just a fraction, the kind of movement you only catch if you're watching for it. She had expected heat. She had expected volume. What she got was a man with a pen and a legal pad treating her accusation like a deposition. "Yes," she said. "I stand by what I said." Kennedy nodded slowly, the way a man nods when someone has just signed something they did not read. "Good," he said. "I appreciate you putting that on the record, because I am going to need it for what comes next." He set his pen down parallel to the pad, lined up like a surgeon's instrument. Most people, when called a racist in front of a national audience, do one of 2 things. They explode, which makes great television and terrible arguments. Or they grovel, which makes the accuser more powerful and the accused smaller. Kennedy did neither. He treated the word like evidence, not evidence against him, evidence against her. And that distinction was about to cost her everything she brought into that room. The gallery did not know what it was watching yet. They had come for fireworks. What they got was worse. They got patience. The kind of patience that does not comfort you, the kind that makes you wonder what the patient man knows that you do not. Because Kennedy was not defending himself, he was building a record. And the building was the point. The room settled. Omar straightened the papers in front of her. She had a binder, thick, tabbed, color-coded, the kind that says, "I came prepared," the kind that works when the opponent is sloppy. It does not work when the opponent is calm. She shifted strategy the way someone shifts weight before a second swing. The accusation had landed. Now she needed to make it stick, and the glue she reached for was the one she always reached for. Her story. "Senator Kennedy," her voice softened, deliberate, practiced. "I came to this country as a refugee. I lived in a camp for 4 years. I know what exclusion looks like. I know what it tastes like. And when I see policies designed to keep people who look like me out of this country, I call it what it is." She paused, letting the weight settle. The gallery leaned forward. A woman in the second row put her hand over her mouth. This was the part that usually worked. This was the part where the opponent either backed down or looked heartless. 2 options, both bad, both hers. Kennedy's eyes stayed on her, steady. He did not interrupt. He did not shift in his chair. He let her finish the way a man lets someone finish a sentence he already knows the ending to. I respect what you survived, Congresswoman. His voice dropped half a register, not performed, genuine, the kind of quiet that fills a room instead of emptying it. I do, and I mean that. The room exhaled. For half a second, it looked like he might stop there. He did not stop there. But your pain does not give you the right to diagnose mine. And it does not give you the right to diagnose theirs. He gestured. Not to the gallery, past it, to the cameras, to the people watching from their living rooms in places she had never been. Omar's hand moved to her binder. She started to open it. Before you go to your notes, ma'am, I would like to read you some of yours. He reached into a manila folder, not the yellow pad, a separate folder, thin. He had brought it the way the fisherman brings one specific lure for one specific fish. June 2019, you posted on social media that American support for Israel is, and I am quoting your words, all about the Benjamins, baby. The room shifted, not loud, like a tide turning in shallow water. That is an anti-Semitic trope, Congresswoman. You know that. Your own party leadership told you that. You apologized. Sort of. Omar's mouth opened. He kept going. March 2019. Speaking about the September 11th attacks, you described the worst terrorist attack in American history as, some people did something. A sound from the gallery, not a gasp, lower, a rumble, the kind of sound a room makes when it remembers something it had been trying to forget. Nearly 3,000 people died that day. Firefighters who climbed 70 flights of stairs knowing they would not come back down. Office workers who held each other's hands and jumped because the fire was worse. A man who called his wife from the 93rd floor to say goodbye to his children. He described what he saw outside the window so she would know where to find him. And you reduced all of that to some people did something. The gallery rumble grew louder. A staffer in the back row sat down, her coffee, her hand was not steady enough to hold it. And then Kennedy continued, turning a page in the folder. When your colleagues in your own party asked you to acknowledge the harm, you said you were being silenced. That the criticism was about your identity, not about your words. About who you are, not what you said. He let that structure show itself, the same architecture every time. Say something indefensible, get called on it, claim the criticism is bigotry, repeat. Kennedy closed the folder, set it next to the yellow pad. Now, Congresswoman, I am not calling you an anti-Semite. I am not calling you un-American. I am reading you your own words, and I am asking you a question that I think is fair. He leaned forward just an inch. If your words get to be explained away as context and nuance, why don't mine? Omar pulled the binder closer. Her fingers found a tab. She flipped pages. For the first time since the hearing began, she was not looking at the camera. She was looking for an answer that was not in those pages. It had never been in those pages. She came into this room armed with a word. He came armed with her words. And her words were heavier. The gallery was not sure where to look. Some watched her flip through the binder. Others watched Kennedy sit still. The stillness was louder. You could feel the room beginning to understand something, not all at once. The way a tide comes in, ankle first, then knee, then you realize you have been standing in it for a while. But Omar was not finished. And what happened next nearly turned the whole room against him. She closed the binder, set it aside, and when she spoke again, her voice was different. Not the moral authority voice, not the refugee voice. This was the policy voice, the one with numbers, the one with receipts. Senator Kennedy, since you want to talk about records, let us talk about yours. She did not gesture, she recited. You voted against the reauthorization of the Violence Against Women Act. You voted against the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act. You voted against the For the People Act, which would have expanded voting access to millions of Americans. You co-sponsored a bill that would have restricted asylum claims for families fleeing violence. She rattled off 4 more dates, bill numbers, vote tallies. She had done her homework, not the binder homework, the real kind, the kind that lands. And in 2021, she said, and now she was leaning forward, you voted against making lynching a federal hate crime. Lynching. You could not bring yourself to vote yes on lynching. The gallery shifted, not toward Kennedy this time, toward her, hard. A murmur rolled through the back rows. A reporter in the front wrote something down fast enough that her pen skipped on the paper. 2 people in the gallery nodded. One of them said something under her breath that the microphones almost caught. For about 40 seconds she had him. This was not performance, this was preparation. She had built this list the way a carpenter builds a staircase. Each vote a step, each step leading higher. And the vote she put at the top was the one designed to make him look the smallest. Kennedy's jaw tightened. Not a collapse, a recalibration. The way a boxer adjusts his stance after catching a punch he did not see coming. He breathed. Not a deep breath, not a theatrical breath, a working breath, the kind you take before you lift something heavy. Those are real votes, Congresswoman. I stand behind every one of them, including the one you just named. I oppose that bill because of how it was written, not what it stood against. And you know that. But I notice you saved it for last because it sounds the worst. That is good lawyering, I respect it. He gave her the acknowledgement straight, no dismissal, no eye roll. The people watching at home felt the blow land. They were supposed to, because what Kennedy did next only works if the audience believes the punch was real. But since we are talking about records, Congresswoman, I do not want to talk about mine anymore. I want to talk about yours. Not your voting record, your district. His hand moved to the yellow pad. He flipped back to the first page, the one he had written on before the hearing started. The neat columns, the small letters. He read from the yellow pad, not fast, the way a contractor reads an estimate to a homeowner who is about to hear a number they do not want to hear. Minneapolis, your district. 37% of black children in your district read at grade level. 37. Poverty rate for black families nearly 3 times the state average. Violent crime in the neighborhoods you represent up 40% over 5 years. He looked up from the pad. You have represented these people for years, Congresswoman. These children cannot read. Their mothers are afraid to walk to the grocery store after dark. And you spent your time on television calling people racist. Omar's hand stopped mid-page. Her fingers rested on a sheet of paper she was not reading. Her mouth opened and closed. Not a word, a reflex, the kind of motion that happens when the body tries to speak, and the brain has not decided what to say yet. The room reversed. You could feel it happen, not a sound, a direction, like wind changing in a field. 40 seconds ago, the current had been pulling toward her. Now it swung back hard. The counterattack was real. The room felt it. For about 40 seconds, she had him. The voting record was genuine ammunition, the kind that leaves a mark even when the fight is over. But Kennedy had not come here to survive. He had come here to finish. Omar played the last card, the one at the bottom of every deck she had ever carried. Her voice cracked. Whether it was real or practice did not matter. The crack was there. The vulnerability was on display. You are attacking me because of who I am. A black Muslim immigrant woman. That is what this is about. That is what it has always been about. The gallery held its breath. This was the exit ramp, the moment where a lesser opponent would either pile on and look cruel or back off and look weak. 2 doors, both trapped. Kennedy found a third door. He spoke more slowly now, not the lawyer voice, not the senator voice, something underneath both. A man's voice. Congresswoman, I am not attacking who you are. I have not said a word about your faith. I have not said a word about where you were born. And I am not going to, because it does not matter. Not to what I am about to say. He set the yellow pad down, closed it, done with the numbers. There is a man watching this right now, somewhere in Michigan or Ohio or right here in Louisiana. He is 62 years old. He has been getting up at 5 in the morning for 35 years. He drives 45 minutes to a job that does not care about his last name. On Saturdays, he coaches Little League for kids in his neighborhood. Black kids, white kids. He does not sort them. He never has. Kennedy's voice dropped. Not to a whisper, to the register where you say things you have carried for a long time. That man has never said a racist word in his life. He has never even thought one. When his neighbor's house flooded, he did not check what the neighbor looked like before he carried furniture out of the basement. When the kid down the street needed a ride to practice, he did not ask the kid's last name first. He just showed up. That is what he does. He shows up. Kennedy's hand rested flat on the table, open. Not a fist, not a gesture, just a hand. The way you put your hand on a table when you are telling someone the truth and you want them to feel the weight of it. But he turns on the television every single night and someone who looks like you tells him that he is the problem. That his country is the problem. That everything he built and bled for is just a monument to hate. The gallery was silent, not the polite silence of a hearing room. The heavy silence of people hearing something they recognize. The silence of people being described. That man does not write letters. He does not call his congressman. He does not post on social media. He just sits there and takes it. And he has been taking it for years. And nobody has stood up and said what he cannot say for himself. Kennedy looked at Omar, not with anger, something worse than anger, clarity. You are not a bad person, Congresswoman, I believe that, but you are a careless one. And carelessness with that word has a price that you have never had to pay. He let the sentence land. Then he kept going, slower now, each word placed like a stone in a wall. When you call everything racist, nothing is. When the word means everything, it means nothing. And the people who suffer are not people like me. I will be fine. The people who suffer are the ones who face real racism, the ones who need that word to mean something, the ones who need people to listen when they say it. He leaned back just slightly, the way a man leans back when the heavy lifting is done. You took the most powerful word in the English language, Congresswoman, a word that used to stop conversations, a word that used to end careers, a word that used to make people look in the mirror, and you used it so many times on so many people, for so many things that had nothing to do with race that you broke it. Omar's binder sat open in front of her. An hour ago it was a weapon. Now it was just paper. Her shoulders dropped. Not a performance, not a choice. Gravity. The kind that happens when the spine stops holding something up. Her breathing changed. Shorter, tighter, the kind of breathing you can hear through a microphone if the room is quiet enough. The room was quiet enough. Kennedy looked at her one more time, not to attack, to name. You broke the fire alarm, Congresswoman. And one day there will be a real fire and no one will come because you taught them not to believe it. She is the kind of person who pulls the fire alarm until no one runs. The room did not move. That silence traveled. It moved through cables and screens and satellites and landed in places that Senate hearings never reach. Kitchen tables in Iowa, a break room in a warehouse in Georgia, a truck cab on Interstate 40 somewhere west of Amarillo. If this video found you there, share it now, before you finish listening, for the one person in your life who needs to hear that they are not crazy, that they are not the thing they have been called. Do it now. Because that person has been carrying something for a long time and does not know anyone else feels it. Now here's the part Kennedy could not say, not because he did not know it, because he is a senator, and the senators speak from marble rooms with cameras on. And there are things you cannot say from that height without it sounding like a performance. The man he described, the one in Michigan, in Ohio, in Louisiana, that man does not stay quiet because he has nothing to say. He stays quiet because he has done the math. He has watched people lose jobs over a single sentence taken out of context. He has watched a neighbor get called a bigot at a school board meeting for asking a question about curriculum. He has watched his own daughter stop inviting him to Thanksgiving because she is afraid of what her friends will think of his bumper sticker. He did the math. And the math said silence is cheaper. That is the part no senator can say out loud, that the cost of speaking is not abstract. It is the Thanksgiving table that got smaller. The phone call from a grandchild that stopped coming. The coworker who used to eat lunch with you and now does not make eye contact in the hallway. Small things. Exposed wires in a house that looks fine from the street. But the people living inside know exactly where not to step. And so they stay quiet. Not because they are weak, because they are careful. The way people become careful when they learn that one word applied by the wrong person on the wrong day can undo 30 years of showing up. That is what was in that room, not a debate, not a political moment.